We are here today together with industry, education, labor to support Newfoundland and Labrador's offshore oil and gas industry. We're here to highlight its importance that this industry has on the economy of our province and the energy future of Canada. Together we are united in our view and our commitment to achieve social, environmental, and financial sustainability. This is an unprecedented time for the people of our province, the country, and the world. We are concerned COVID-19 is having a dramatic effect on our economy, and the oil and gas industry is not immune to this. The combination of foreign overproduction and a significant drop in demand related to this pandemic has dealt a devastating blow to the province's oil and gas sector. We are also concerned because we estimate that between the oil industry cancellations, between project deferrals and suspensions, nearly $61 billion could be lost to the provincial GDP between now and 2038. The thing is, our offshore industry has proven to be a foundational component of our province's economy and our future. In fact, it is an industry that generates a wide range of positive impacts on both families and businesses throughout Newfoundland and Labrador, and indeed across our country. To highlight its impact, there's an interesting piece of information from a 2019 study by the Provincial Department of Finance that shows that from 2010 to 2017, total economic benefits related to the offshore petroleum industry in our province accounted for nearly 30% of our GDP. It is not realistic to think that 30% of our GDP can be replaced quickly or overnight. In December 2019, over 6,700 people were directly employed on Newfoundland and Labrador's offshore projects. That's 13% of our provincial labor compensation. And that's not factoring in the intangible confidence boost this brings to our province. What we can't forget is that when investment leaves the province, it takes our young families and our experienced, skilled workforce with it. Imagine the positive impact of 6,700 well-paying jobs has on our economy. There's overwhelming support from people and businesses throughout the province for our oil and gas industry. You can just ask hospitality industries. They see the benefit. Operators like restaurants, hotels, and tour groups all benefit from our offshore oil and gas. You can just ask our charities. They see the benefit of our offshore oil and gas on their organizations and the people that they support. The real estate industry sees the positive impacts resulting from the housing market because of our offshore industry. As you will hear in a few minutes from other speakers, environmental groups in our province, will they see the benefit of this industry? We all want to create a strong future for the next generations of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. We want to build a province where our children and grandchildren can live and prosper. This means building a sustainable future, something that has received global recognition of importance. Now, we share the federal government's goals of environmental protection and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and we are dedicated to collaborating on all aspects of our energy supply in Canada. Now, if you believe in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, if you believe in protecting your environment, and if you believe in developing a sustainable economy, well, we have the resources. What you may not know is that Newfoundland and Labrador's offshore oil, it's light, it's sweet crude with low emissions. In fact, some of our projects are already among some of the lowest carbon intensity emitting facilities in the world. Now, to dig a little deeper into this, the Hibernia offshore field alone has some of the lowest carbon intensity, as emissions are 37% lower than the global benchmark. Our offshore oil is less impactful than on the environmental perspective to process. It is important to remember that oil and gas represents up to 60% of the global energy consumption. So by not supporting the Newfoundland and Labrador offshore, not only will this have a devastating impact on our province's economy, but it will also result in a gap in supply that will instead be filled by jurisdictions that have a far worse environmental standards and oversight. Importation of foreign oil should not be Canada's option. The responsible choice is to invest in Newfoundland and Labrador's offshore, and we want to continue this work. We can even further reduce greenhouse gas emissions by making immediate investments and set the stage for this province to become a national leader in clean energy. A plan for net zero carbon emissions is a plan for economic competitiveness. That is why on last Thursday I wrote Prime Minister Trudeau to state Newfoundland and Labrador's commitment to a net zero carbon emissions by 2050. We need the federal government to be an active partner in achieving this goal. We can only do this together. And speaking of working together, the Council of Atlantic Premiers, well, we met in January of 2020, along with Quebec Premier Francois Legault, to discuss opportunities to develop, to transmit, and exchange Eastern Canada's clean energy resources. So between our oil and our hydro, we have the clean energy resources that Canada and the world are looking for. We need to make sure that Canada remains a global energy leader. Jurisdictions like Norway and the United Kingdom have put together aggressive plans for achieving net zero emissions. That involves significant investment in transitioning its offshore industry to meet the needs of a low-carbon economy. Canada needs a similar plan. We need to continue to work together with all our partners, particularly the Government of Canada, to develop a global competitive plan. Newfoundland and Labrador is well positioned and can make that happen. This can no longer be ignored. We have the resources, we have the people, and we have the determination. The time is now, and we are ready. I will now pass it over to Minister Coady for her comments.
Thank you very much for your words, Mr. Premier. The importance of the oil industry to the economy of Newfoundland and Labrador cannot be overstated nor replaced currently by any other sector in our economy. A 2019 study by the Provincial Department of Finance found that over an 8-year period from 2010 to 2017, total economic benefits related to the offshore petroleum industry in Newfoundland and Labrador accounted for nearly 30% of our gross domestic product, 13% of labor compensation, and 10% of employment. Budget 2019 estimated the offshore would contribute $1.1 billion in royalties in 2019-20, making up 19% of total provincially sourced revenue. Further, is a significant contributor to the revenues of the Government of Canada. Operations from offshore oil companies have paid, through tax allocation formula, approximately $2.1 billion in direct federal corporate income tax alone during the period 2000 to 2017. Additionally, through investments in Hibernia, the federal government has realized returns of $5.5 billion through both dividends to the Canada Hibernia Holdings and the net profits interest it collects from that project. This does not consider the taxes received either directly or indirectly from individuals employed and corporations supporting offshore operation. The province has invested in recent years for the collection of seismic data offshore that reveals significant prospectivity. This has resulted in historically high interest offshore with over $4 billion in exploration work committed. With 4 major producing projects, Newfoundland and Labrador has produced approximately 26% of Canada's conventional light crude oil and approximately 8% of Canada's total crude oil from 97 to 19. Through Advance 2030, we outline the future of the industry, of which there is tremendous potential. Over 650 leads and prospects identified to date, 8 new entrants in the last 6 years, and resource potential of 52.2 billion barrels of oil. That is in just 9% of the province's offshore. The offshore industry has undergone tremendous challenges in the past few months and is dealing with the impacts of COVID-19 and the decrease in the price of oil. The global nature of the industry operating offshore, the advanced planning requirements for these projects, the existence of global portfolios for these companies will all contribute to the challenges of recovering once they have made alternate investment decisions. These decisions made now, unless mitigated, will have lasting impacts that will be irreversible in the short and medium term and will be devastating to Newfoundland and Labrador's economy, as well as hamper economic recovery nationally. Given these concerns and the significant contribution of the industry to the economy, the government of Newfoundland and Labrador has been working with CAP, NOIA, the Oil and Gas Industry Development Association, and our Oil and Gas Corporation to determine industry's requirements to ensure continued investment and operations. As the federal government is a joint management partner in our offshore and has received tremendous benefits from its development, we submitted 3 priority areas for support investment in Newfoundland and Labrador offshore oil industry several months ago. These proposals relate to preserving and accelerating exploration offshore and helping to preserve the financial liquidity for industry. I cannot emphasize enough the urgency of this matter or the need for this net present value positive investment. These programs would support both near-term exploration as well as near-term capital investment by companies, which would drive the regional economy, maintain employment, and investments in research and community development. As you've heard from the Premier, conventional oil produced here represents one of the lowest carbon per barrel footprints in the world. Canada and Newfoundland and Labrador have the opportunity now to maintain and even accelerate investment in Newfoundland and Labrador offshore and supply the global marketplace with Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador energy, produced with the highest human rights, safety, and environmental standards, while providing a significant positive impact to the economy of both the province and the country. We ask Canada to support Newfoundland and Labrador and to benefit from these efforts. Indeed, the environmentally responsible and committed green economy country of Norway is working to explore and develop its oil industry. We ask Canada to do the same and to support Newfoundland and Labrador in its efforts to supply the world with lower carbon per barrel oil, develop the economy, and rise strongly from the impacts of COVID-19. The time is now, and we call on the federal government as a joint partner for their commitment to ensuring continued investment, continued opportunity, continued economic benefit, continued lower carbon per barrel for the global market. Thank you.